So we're here at Stanford University today, and we're going to ask some of the students what they think about the two-party system. So what do you think about the two-party system?
It needs to be demolished. Really, if the two-party system, if the founding father really believed in the Revolutionary War, and now we're in a two-party system, then what's the point of the Revolutionary War when everyone was together and then now we're divided as a nation?
Well, most of the founding fathers, they didn't believe in a two-party system. As a matter of fact, whenever they set up our country the way it was based off of an individual getting elected. That way we know who to blame and we know who to praise. So whether they do something right or they do something wrong, that's the way it's supposed to be. So now we have this party politics, which just charges. What it does is it causes separation within the nation. And a separated nation is a weak nation. So if the nation is weak, then we can be controlled by our leaders. So that is the main reason why we continue with the two-party system.
But let me ask you this question.
Okay.
How would you deal with the two-party system?
Well, we have to hold them accountable.
How?
We have to hold the individuals accountable. Okay, we tend to, as a nation, whenever one individual within a party, whenever they mess up, we blame the entire party. We don't blame the individual because we have these parties. They end up taking up for the person and trying to hide stuff and everything. But what we have to do is we have to elect an official, we have to elect a leader, which will call those people out. But actually do it the right way to where we can call them out, we can hold them accountable on behalf of the people and not on behalf of the party.
Now, let me say that I do vote for you, you will get elected.
Yeah.
Now, within the first 100 days, which each president is notable for, what is your call to action?
Well, if you look at my website, you'll see that we have a whole list of things that we're going to accomplish. But the thing that we have to think about, we have to remember, is we have to have the money to do these things. Well, there's no reason to tax the American people more than what they're already being taxed. So we have to balance the budget and we have to cut all unnecessary spending. And by cutting all the unnecessary spending, we would then find the money to do the things that we need, like affordable health care, the infrastructure projects that we have planned, ending poverty, ending homelessness, ending the drug epidemic, things like that really matter. So we have to make sure that we have the money, and we have to find out where the money's coming from before we can do any of the rest. So that has to be the thing that we do in the first 100 days.
Now, what's your definition of balancing the budget?
Well, balancing the budget, man, there's like 4 or 5 definitions for doing that, It's just like in a business. Whenever I run a business, we have to make sure that we account for where all the spending goes. And if we can get a better deal, we do it. You have to look for the better deals. The American people, like you and I now, if we want to know where things are being spent, we have no real way to look to see where it's actually being spent, penny for penny for penny, because they don't know. All they know is that special interests say it costs this much. You pay them, people get kickbacks. Both parties do that. All politicians do that. So our budget is not balanced in the sense that there is no limit to how much we can spend.
Now, when you're saying American people, right, there's a lot of things that comes up in the American system of, if you get elected, will you pardon Trump and other political leaders?
No, because before you even consider pardoning one of our elected officials for committing a crime, for committing that felony, we elected them, we trusted them, we give our freedoms, we entrusted them with our freedoms. So since we entrusted them with our freedoms, they should be held to the fullest extent of the law. Not only that, but there's a lot of people in the United States that have been arrested, charged unjustly. I'm going to concentrate on pardoning them long before I would ever even consider pardoning Trump. If he's found guilty for doing this, he doesn't deserve a pardon. He deserves a lot worse. So no, there's no way. It's not going to happen.
What do you think about the unnecessary spending in the military-industrial complex?
Well, I think it's absolutely horrible. The last thing that I read, and I'll have to get the exact numbers, but I think it was like 6 trillion every fiscal year that we just waste. We don't know where it goes. It just goes away. I mean, you can go on the streets in some places and you see people starving. There's so much stuff that money could be spent on other than, padding the pockets of these dictatorish leaders that we have. But I spoke to a gentleman earlier about balancing the budget, and part of the thing is we have to cut all this unnecessary spending. So whether it's with big military or big pharma or whatever the case may be, we have to cut this. We have to eliminate this. And that has to be done within the first 100 days.
Going off of the military and then moving on to guns.
Guns.
Yes.
Oh, you're going to ask me the Second Amendment thing. Here we go. So let's first talk about the Constitution. The Constitution is the law of the land, which means we cannot, as long as we're the United States of America, we cannot really change the law of the land. Now we can add amendments to it. But what we have to do is we have to have an understanding of how society has changed. To put it very plainly, there's some crazy people that can get their hands on guns, and they should not be allowed to. Now, having a policy that prevents that from happening and have extensive background checks for anybody that buys a gun, that is not violating the Second Amendment. If you abolish the Second Amendment, you're not going to eliminate weapons.
They're still going to exist.
They're still going to exist. They're going to be in the black market, and then we have no idea exactly who has them, and we have no regulation over it. So with that, man, that's a touchy situation, but we absolutely have to pass some really rock solid policies.
Going off of that, like safety and all that.
Like gun safety?
Yeah, exactly. Safety.
Well, okay, a long time ago, they actually taught gun safety in schools, which I think would be a really good idea. You know, it's not necessarily to promote owning guns. It's just to where if you're around them,
You'd know what to do.
you know what to do. I think it should be something that should be implemented in all schools. And not only that, you know, a lot of people growing up now, they get their ideas of guns from video games. I mean, it is what it is. So they don't really have an understanding of what exactly that gun can do in real life. So if we implement some gun safety courses within our schools, so I don't think that would be a bad idea. And as I said before, that's not to promote gun ownership. It's just the safety aspect of it.
Because it's already there in the environment.
It's there, and it's not going
It's
anywhere.
not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
So it might as well learn about it.
Yeah, you might as well learn about it. I mean, look, you're going to have politicians, like I'm with the Democratic Party. You'll hear some of the politicians say, we're going to ban certain guns, right? And then you'll hear the other side say, no, we're not going to ban. Look, they're not going to ban guns. It's not going to happen. They can't. They can't legally do it. So if they're telling you they're going to, they're lying to you. They're playing off your emotions. So let's just see it for what it is. I always say, let's see truths for what they really are, not what we want them to be. So let's see this particular thing for what it really is, so we can come up with an actual solution, so we can stop all these mass killings, because it's got to stop. I am a presidential candidate. Here in the next couple of weeks, you'll start seeing my name on the list and stuff. We've already started the fundraising. We've got everything that we need to get on the ballot.
Okay.
Right? So I'm 40 years old, which is much younger than anybody else.
Yep.
What do you think about that? Because I've spoke to a lot of people that seems they feel like we need fresh ideas.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's time, quite honestly, to push the boomers out.
Well,
It's time for Gen X to take over. Boomers just won't get out of the seats.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, they're hanging on to dear life, and it does start at the congressional level. But you know, we need new ideas. We need new ways of looking at things, new ways to make things happen. Yeah, 100%.
Well, you know, my idea, I have a lot of people that ask me, they say, well, why didn't you start off on a local level? Why didn't you start something smaller and work your way up? Which is pretty well the way the politicians do.
Yep.
I don't see us making a change until we go to the top and position ourselves in a place to where we can actually make those changes. Does that make sense?
The problem is, let's just say hypothetically, you won.
Yep.
Okay. Now you've got to work with an established,
Yeah.
whatever party's in there.
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to fight you tooth
Yeah.
and nail to get anything done. So,
Well, what do you think that, like somebody like myself, I guess I would be considered an underdog, that's going to come up from behind and go up? It would be the people who put me there, right?
yep.
So with that kind of support, do you think we could use that leverage to force Congress to do what they're supposed to do?
Well, you'd have to use that leverage to get more like-mindeds to run,
Yeah.
and we get a few people in Congress, get maybe one or two senators to, like, you know, that are your guys, and you know, have your back. You get in there, obviously, you pull some, you know, cabinet of rivals in. You pull people into the cabinet, and you use them to also advocate with what you need to do across the hill. Like maybe you pick somebody as Secretary of State, but their like secondary job is to like liaise with the Democrats.
Yeah.
Or you pick somebody as your Attorney General, Republican, his job is to flag the Republicans, and you just kind of try to bring these groups together.
Do you really think there's a difference between the two parties on the inner workings?
Unfortunately, it's become less and less.
Yeah.
I mean, both parties have gotten, you know, it used to be, The Republicans were, smaller government, less spending, but now the spending is just, we're going to spend on these priorities, we're going to spend on these focuses. It used to be the Democrats were your peace party, and they don't want to go after war. Now it's like, end of Obama, it was very much getting to Syria. We're still in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now we're going to Syria. It's like, okay, and Libya, and other things like that. And now with Biden, we're neck deep in Ukraine and that mess. Rather than trying to find a way to, push for peace instead of just conflict.
Yeah, it almost seems like we're fixing problems we created.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I really appreciate it.
Of course, man.